You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't. Hi, Chad Franson here, one of the hosts of Share Your Voice, where we talk with top-notch law firms and lawyers about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, delivering tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives and maximize your growth potential. To have a successful marketing campaign and make sure you're getting the best ROI, your firm needs to have a better website and better content. Gladiator Law Marketing uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and decades of experience to outperform the competition. To learn more, go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com, where you can schedule a free marketing consultation. Shane Smith has spent his life helping victims who are injured due to no fault of their own. He has obtained millions of dollars for his clients over the years. He's an Army vet with both parents being veterans as well. Hey, Shane, thanks so much for your service, and welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good, and thanks. I appreciate it.
Hey, so you are the proprietor of Shane Smith Law. Tell me what you guys do, a little bit more about what you guys do and what you guys specialize in.
Yeah, so we're primarily car accident lawyers. I would say probably 95% of our business is that, just helping people injured in car wrecks. The other 5% is, slip and falls, maybe some dog bite cases, or just, the odd and weird negligence type cases that we run into.
So as somebody who's not an attorney, if I slip and fall, what is the benefit for me to call an attorney?
I would say the first thing is 9 times out of 10, probably more than that, more like 99 times out of 100, the store is going to deny your claim right out. They're going to be like, hey, you slipped on something, you should have seen it, it's your fault. And that happens even when you hire a lawyer like myself. Most of the time, they're just going to deny it in the very beginning. And I think they do that deliberately, just see who's going to persevere and try to hold their feet to the fire and, go forward with the case. Because a lot of lawyers drop cases as soon as they get a denial letter, especially people who don't do a lot of slip and fall work. They're going to back out and say, oh, Walmart's denying it, I don't want to do it, and drop the case.
If you show that you're willing to pursue the case, what usually happens?
So usually those cases settle like other, cases, basically. I mean, I would say probably 70, 80% of those settle. But the difference in a slip and fall case versus a car wreck case is you're probably going to have to file the actual lawsuit. And that's the big difference. Most car accident cases are going to settle without filing a lawsuit. But the slip and falls, you're going to have to file, show that you can beat summary judgment, and then those cases settle.
If you are in a car accident, you mentioned, you could probably settle without filing a lawsuit. Why would somebody have to file a lawsuit, and who would you be filing a lawsuit against, the other person?
So you're normally going to have to file the lawsuit when the insurance company has basically denied delayed defense. Basically, they deny your case outright. They try to say you're partially at fault for it, and they don't want to pay, or they minimize your injuries. So they say they were pre-existing conditions, so they happened before the accident, or they say your treatment was unreasonable or you treated too long. So they just make you a lowball offer. So you might have to file a lawsuit there to hold their feet to the fire and to go after more money, basically, to get a fair compensation for your injuries.
Okay. Interesting stuff. Hey, how did you get started in the legal industry? I know you were obviously in the Army.
So I got started in the legal industry. When I was a kid, I always thought it was cool. Lawyers seem to make a bunch of money, help a bunch of people. They wear suits. I thought all that was great when I was like 6 years old. When I got up older, I wanted to be an FBI agent. So when I was an undergraduate in college, I thought that was what I wanted to do. And I was a criminal justice degree. And I didn't realize that the FBI didn't hire people with criminal justice degrees. I hired accountants and lawyers. And I didn't want to be an accountant. So that pushed me into law school. Once I got back into law school, I sort of fell in love with the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. We've got all these rights. They got to be defended. And I felt strongly and passionately that if we didn't use those rights for everybody, then pretty much they would be gone when good people needed them, basically. So that's how I ended up looking at criminal defense work. Then I went in the Army, was a JAG in the Army for 4 years. So I did a year of legal aid, then 3 years of criminal defense defending soldiers accused of crimes. And then when I got out, I ended up in personal injury work.
How did you enjoy doing that defense while you were in the service?
Uh, I enjoyed defending soldiers, but obviously there were aspects of it I did not enjoy. Um, and I enjoyed some of my clients more than others, is what I would say. That it's kind of like being a public defender. You get whatever the soldiers you get. I thought it was important to represent them the best I could and make sure they got a fair shake at it. Many times, criminal defendants in the Army in particular, but also in other areas, they look around and they feel all alone. And I'm not defending what they've done, but I'm saying sometimes they have extenuating circumstances. Sometimes they just need somebody. They've done bad things, and they just need someone along with them to sort of walk them through this foreign thing, so at least they understand what's going on. And you do that. I feel like I learned a ton in the Army. I really developed my cross-examination skills there. I got to do some stuff I would never have gotten done out in private practice that early. And I actually got to go to air assault school, so I rappelled out of helicopters, which is nothing illegal, but still kind of cool.
Sure, absolutely. So what kind of mindset do you have to have? Let's say you're representing somebody who probably did something that you disagreed with or whatever you do was illegal. What's the kind of mindset that you have to have when you're defending that person, just to do the best job you can?
Yeah, I mean, one, you try to isolate it. You try to put your work in a box and leave it at work and not bring it at home. That's one of the key things. But two, I always looked at it and said, if no matter how good I did my job, if the prosecution and the police officers did their job, I was going to lose. My job is just to make sure that they do their job. And the reason I have to do that is because if I don't make them do their job here, then what's to keep them from just doing something sloppy and accusing you of something and just pushing it through and nobody defends you. So that was always sort of how I looked at it. I just have to make sure they're doing their job and they're not going after somebody who's innocent, but also, they're not getting sloppy so that they bleed over and get used to just doing things against anybody.
What was it like? What was your kind of your emotional state or your mindset during your first ever trial case, like where you were defending your first ever client? Were you nervous, intimidated, ready, prepared?
I had certainly way over prepared. I mean, I had, done tons of research. You're totally nervous. I think anybody who says they're not nervous doing a trial probably is moved to that phase where maybe they shouldn't be doing them as much, because you get nervous when you care, and you get nervous when you care about the outcome and it's a serious thing. So nerves should be there almost every single time. And obviously in the beginning I was scared to death, right? Because you're like, holy cow, this person depends on me to represent them, to get a good result. If I don't, they're going to go to jail for maybe life even, or for decades, one way or the other. And so I was nervous, totally over prepared. Although, can you really over prepare in that situation? But I was very prepared, is what I'll say. And it was fun and exciting, but while you're in the neck of it, you don't actually always know whether it's going good or bad. That's what I would say, because you're concentrating on what's in front of you so intensely, you may lose some other stuff, which is why my boss always had somebody second chair with us and watch. And I still highly encourage lawyers to do that, because you get somebody outside like, hey, dude, you got to tone it down. You're being a jerk, or, hey, you can step it up, or you're missing this area here, or, focus in on here. So help is always good.
So you did that for 3 years and then you started your own firm?
4 total. So 1 year in legal aid in the Army, 3 years of criminal defense. Then I actually went to go work for a big TV law firm in Atlanta, and learned sort of how to do learned a lot about personal injury work, right? Because that's what they did. I jumped, feet first, and got to see a ton of case, but also learned a little bit more about the business and systems associated with running a practice from these guys, because they did a wonderful job in that part as well. So I got to sort of see that and experience it and be like, holy cow, there's more to it than just signing clients up and sticking them on a shelf.
So when did you know that it was kind of time for you to, branch out on your own and start building your own thing?
I'd say probably 2 or 3 years in, I was like, hey, this is not going to work for me long term. you look at it and you're like, you start second guessing everything. You're like, hey, I think this is silly why they do stuff. And I've even told the guy who ran it years later, I met him and I go, dude, I totally get why you did many of the things you did. And I was just young and stupid and didn't understand why you wanted to do it that way. But I think certain people are entrepreneurial and they're going to want to go do their own thing anyway. And that was me. So, I mean, at 4 years, it was time for me to go and go do my own thing.
So what were the early, was your firm located in Atlanta as well or somewhere else?
It was so it was in a little town, basically, Peachtree City, Georgia, south of Atlanta.
Okay.
But we did cases in the Atlanta area. I mean, that was where most of my contacts were and where I knew everybody. So we operated there for many years, and then probably like 8 or 9 years in, we opened up the office in Charlotte.
What were the early days like when you first started out on your own? Like, how did you get clients, things like that?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I reached out to everybody I knew and said, hey, I'm doing my own thing. I'll take I don't want to say your dog cases, but I'll basically take whatever you got, if another lawyer dropped it, let me take a look at it. If maybe there's a gap and it's not a stellar case, let me take a look at it, see if I can make anything out of it. And I got a bunch of those kind of cases, second opinion type cases. And second opinion in the sense that the first lawyer said, I can't make any money on it. Here you go. And I took those and, we hustled and tried to settle those cases out and represent clients. And, fortunately, we had some good results there. And the people I'd known in the past were more than happy for me to take a look at those cases other lawyers were dropping. And we managed to, I'd settle one. I'd be like, all right, that's $500 here. That'll pay my secretary's salary for the week. Here's $300 here. Here's my light bill. And it was just hustling. And that got the first round of clients, I think. And then, as soon as I could, I paid for a website with a guy who did some SEO, which, brought in a couple more clients. And then I think, that was back when Yellow Page ads were up and running. And I bought some Yellow Page ads from a small little local directory. And I think at some point I got something in one of the bigger directories and, just continued sort of branching out. I was pretty aggressive on follow-up. If you called me, you were going to get some calls back, and that worked well for me.
How long was it before you kind of maybe you realized like we're not in startup mode anymore? We're kind of like more established.
I don't know. I felt in the hustle mode for a while. I think when I hired an office manager, that helped because for me, I was doing it and my wife worked with me. So she would do her job as a nurse on the weekends. Then she would come into the office and work during the week. And we were probably in hustle mode for, I would say 3 or 4 years. That was when I was working every weekend, trying to do stuff. If the phone rang at 8 o'clock at night, I picked it up and took that call. And if it rang on the weekends, it did. We would take a box of mail to my kids' soccer games and she would open up the mail. And we would sort it while the kids were playing soccer, kind of deal. I mean, we were working crazy hours, probably until I hired an office manager, year 3 or 4. And that's when I think I felt like, okay, we're out of hustle mode. We've got some predictable revenue. We know about what we can expect to make. This is where it's at.
That's a lot of hustling. Congratulations to you on that. What were some of the biggest things you learned? I'm sure with your experience as an attorney doing defense, and then your, other professional experience that you had, you were well versed in the law and what you had to do. But in terms of running your own company, what are some things that maybe were surprising to you or the biggest things you learned?
I would say in the beginning, one of the harder things was like cash flow, but also like credit cards, how you pay for stuff. I mean, as crazy as that is, I mean, I remember we started doing more advertising and we were up and, we spent 20 grand one month and my credit card was like $20,000 limit. So, and I got a letter saying they'd upped it to 22, but I was like, yeah, but we're doing this other ad thing. I need you to move it to 25. And they're like, we can't, we just bumped it up last month. Like, well, I pay my bill every month. They're like, yeah, we know, but we still can't. So, that was stressful because they're like, well, we can open you up a second card and you can put some on one and some on the other. I'm like, that's ridiculous, So that was stressful. just managing the books. I remember one Friday afternoon, I'd write a bunch of settlement checks, then payroll checks, and trying to figure out how much I had to pay my employees on taxes. That accounting type stuff was tough as well. And then I think even like chasing down checks that were uncleared, like to providers and clients and things like that. It's just stuff you don't even think about.
Did you put a lot of effort into marketing and promoting yourself?
Yeah, so I've always been a big fan of marketing. Shortly after I became a lawyer, I joined a attorney coaching group that talked about marketing and brand building and trying to do your own thing. I did a lot of the let me go out and meet people, let me go to lunch, let me go to breakfast. If this is a doctor's office, let me go visit them and make sure they know my name and face. Carry the business cards to talk to somebody. Probably when I look back, a little sharkish type behavior. Really, probably could have toned it down a little bit and been a little more like, hey, is there any way I can help you? Versus just, hey, I'm a shark, I'm a lawyer, here you go. I did that. I mean, we mailed letters out to clients. We went to a newsletter once a month early on. And I attribute that to a lot of success. I think that's wonderful. Reach out to your clients. Now everybody does it digitally, but still, at the time it was a paper newsletter in the mail.
What do you most enjoy about what you're doing now?
I like giving people big checks. When you get a good settlement for somebody who's just a really great client, somebody who didn't do anything wrong, got hurt, but just listened to the doctors, went to the doctors, we got them better, and sometimes they didn't have any health insurance, they got a surgery, and then you're able to give them a big check and they're like, holy cow, and they're genuinely thankful, they're appreciative. That's cool. Sometimes we take second opinion calls. Somebody's like, hey, somebody says nobody can help me. What do you think? And then you're able to help somebody. That's huge too, whether those are big or small cases. Sometimes those are little cases, but you're just like, here you go. This is the best I can do. They're like, that's great. You got me some money, you paid my bills, and you made a little bit. He goes, I thought it was too small for a lawyer. And you're like, well, I mean, it really is kind of small but you're able to help somebody.
Is there a case or a situation that you look back on that you're like, that was like a career highlight type thing?
I had one early on in my case. I had a guy who was hit by somebody crossing the street. And even when I went to go sign it, his sister was there and she goes, 2 or 3 other lawyers turned down this case. They said they can't help this guy. And I said, well, I think I can. I feel good about it. I've heard it. I've talked to you. I've heard everything about it. I think I can help you. And then when we sent that demand to the insurance company and said, hey, pay us your money on this case, I was right in the middle of a trial, as a matter of fact. And, my wife was manning the phones and she just told the other side, hey, he's in court, like 3 days in a row. And the guy says, what? And she goes, he'll be out tomorrow. The jury, we're waiting on the jury. So he'll be here tomorrow. You can talk to him. And then he goes, just tell him we're tendering the limits. He'll know what that means. And when I got it, I went to go see the kid, and it was $100,000 settlement, which is all the money there was. And he goes, holy cow, dude, is this real? I said, yep. And he goes, you told me you were going to help me. I couldn't believe it, really. He goes, I didn't think you'd be able to do anything with it since the other people did. And then he looks at my fee and he goes, holy cow, your fee is like $33,000, 1/3 of the settlement. He goes, that seems huge, man. I said, well, I just want you to remember 3 lawyers turned you down before me. And he goes, nope, I'm not saying you didn't deserve it, but it's just a lot of money, but I'm getting a lot too. So here you go, sign the paper. He was happy. He goes, I'm so glad I hired you and you took the case. And that was it. I mean, it's not the biggest case I've had, but it was early on. I was happy to get a win. He was really happy. I helped him when other people didn't. I mean, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've had some DUI cases where people were hit by drunk drivers and we got great results. And we had a lady come in a week before before the statute of limitations. So a week before her case disappeared. She's like, do you think you can help? We're like, yeah, I would have rather helped you like a year ago, but let us file it, and we turned like a $5,000 offer and like $75,000 or something. You got some of those. She was cool just because it was right before the end, kind of deal. The other guy was just, it was great to help somebody, and then, I mean, I've got several clients where we've just helped wonderful people, just great folks who got hurt real bad, in a lot of pain, needed a surgery, something. Sometimes they don't even know where to turn. I mean, just a ton.
I have one more question for you, but first, tell me how people can find out more about Shane Smith Law.
Yeah, I mean, it's real easy. I mean, go to shanesmithlaw.com. That's www.shanesmithlaw.com. Always call our number, 980-999-9999. I mean, we tell people, if you're in pain, call Shane. We'll be glad to talk to you. If we can't help you, we'll find somebody who can.
Great. Hey, last question for you. I'm sure you've gotten a lot of advice over the years. What is either the best or the worst piece of advice that you can remember getting?
I had one person tell me that it was crazy to spend, I think at the time it was $7,000 on a website. They're like, that's ridiculous. Who would need that? And looking back, I'm like, what? The person making that statement was totally unqualified to make it. I mean, they didn't know what a website cost. They didn't know what traffic was. They didn't know SEO. They didn't know anything at all about it. They're just like, that's a lot for a website. It's ridiculous. Why would you ever pay that? And I'm like, well, you don't know anything at all about it. Now, fortunately, I didn't listen to that advice. Some of the best advice I would say I had was get a coach. Be part of a coaching group or a mastermind. That way you've got some peers you can bounce ideas off of. Don't just go live in a silo. I mean, somebody told me that early on. I was like, great. I think I've had a business coach at least 80% of of the time since I've been a lawyer, which is, that's over 20 years. So at least 16 out of the 20 years I've had a coach. So.
Great. Hey, Shane, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you so much. It's been fun hearing your stories and your thoughts. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be on the show and glad to help.
So long, everybody. Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.